Hello and welcome everyone to the first ever Friction track breakdown. This is something we wanted to do for a while, and we've had a few requests in the Telegram community over the past few days about something like this while we've got a bit of a break between the events. Before the best person to ask on at the minute would be our good friend Kesh Loi, who obviously provided us our most recent release with his Roland Tings EP. He's going to go through the lead track from that release today, which is Conga Bonga. Had some really good feedback from the likes of Archie Hamilton. It's gone down really well at all the gigs that it's been played at. A proper peak time track. So it's going to be really good to see him dive into that. Kesh, do you want to just give us a bit of background on kind of when you made the track, what the inspiration was behind it?
So I made the track a little while ago now. I can't remember exactly when, but it was when the Syntho 2000s Tech House Challenge went about. And I submitted it for that originally, but the obviously the track didn't win, but I did really like the track, and I sent it to a few of my friends, including Alex, and he fell in love with it straight away. So he wanted to sign it, and I was more than happy to put it on a forthcoming EP.
Yeah, we kind of tweaked the original Roland Tings EP, didn't it?
Yeah,
So
there
we
was another track in there as well.
yeah,
That
and we just kind of thought this Roland Tings was a sick track, but this was kind of a proper like A side, wasn't it? So I think it leads the EP really well, and it's just a really well balanced EP. Obviously, you've got this and Nate's remix, which are proper peak time. You got Oasis, which is a bit more warm up, and then Roland Tings just kind of rounds the package off nicely. So if you want to play a little bit from the break, just into the drop for anyone that's not heard it.
Yeah, okay.
Sick. So yeah, as you can hear, a lot of 2000s tech house inspiration, and also Kesh's own spin on it, and a lot of kind of retro synth elements, a lot of music elements in this. So a really good one for us to dive into, especially for the first one. So yeah, Kesh, I'll just kind of give you the wheel, let you sort of start wherever you'd start making the track, and just break down each element and kind of what you've done to it.
All right, sure. So basically, I'd start off originally with the kick, as always, in all of my tracks, and I work in session view, so I just have a little 4/4 kick going. This is what the kick sounds like on its own. So actually, you can hear a little bit of reverb on there. It's subtle. It's not too heavy, and I've put the Valhalla vintage verb on this with a decay of 1.16 seconds. And basically it just gives it an old school feel. I know these lot that made the 2000s tech house use this sort of effect on their kicks, and are using the classic 909 sample, which was obviously what they had access to, drum machines such as, and yeah, so I've just EQ'd it and processed it in a way that I feel works for me and has an old school crunch. I've also got this send on E, which is a send to a distortion / bit crushing, which is by Decimal, by D16. It's a wicked plugin. I use it all the time. There's a few wicked presets on there also. I've got this 16-bit, 16 kilohertz preset on, and I've just sent not too much the signal to it, just a bit, just to give it a bit more of a subtle effect. So that's what that's doing there. But I didn't want to give too much, just wanted it to be subtle, as with everything. And then usually I'd work kick, clap, and then maybe the rest of some drums before I go back to the bass. So I think this way I went kick. Solo that, sorry. I went to kick and then I went to a clap. And as you can hear, they sound quite nice together. The clap has a bit of processing on as well, a bit of overdrive, which I do like, a bit of transient shaping from Neutron 3. It's a little bit of a boost in the mids, as you can see here. I've got shorter to sustain and more attack to make it more sharp. I've also got an EQ on there. Kickstart, just a little bit of kickstart, which is a side chain, just so it's not punching through too much when the kick's hitting. And then it's got a little bit of an echo boy. This echo boy actually is for the breakdowns, I believe. So we'll come on to that in a bit. And then, yeah, I literally just work through my drum. So I'll go kick, clap, snare maybe. No, it's not. That's the breakdown snare, sorry. We'll go. I think I worked on the congas quite early on with this because that's what the track revolves around. So if we play that on their own, sound like this. And see, with them 3 sounds I've got there, it's got a bit of a call and response to it, which is obviously important in your tracks. And this is what I use quite a lot with my elements. So they gel, they work together nicely, and just work all around and has a bit of groove. With the congas for this track, though, I worked them differently. I think I know I use samples. So with the congas, I had it in arrangement view originally. In samples, I think there were loops, and what I did was I put the loops together and cut them up, and then I put them back into session view like this, and started making a groove that way. And then I added like my own bongos in there as well, which I added later on in the track. As you see, they're coming on the main break. And with these, I'll just group them together so I can do some processing together. I've put a bit of distortion on that. C, which is some echo boy, but it's a ping pong delay. A, which is just my drums reverb. So I use quite a lot of send and returns. So drum reverb for this, I use the Valhalla vintage verb. With a short dark snare room, the short decay time also. I don't tend to put too much on the elements, just enough so it fills out some space and gives them some extra depth. I've also used the Echo Boy, which I have like this. I've just saved a preset basically, and I just got that set up. So it's not much to it really, but it adds that ping pong feel, as you can hear with the congas.
Fills out some space in the mix, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that basically just fills out some space. So that's the start of where I would have gone with my drums, and then I probably would have gone back and worked on my bass. I've got 2 different bass variations on this track. So I've got this variation and this one. It is slightly different. This one's a bit more like driving. Oops, sorry. So like that. See, that other one's a bit more driving. That one comes in after the main break. That first bass is there and it's still nice and it's still heavy, but that other one comes in and it just gives it that extra raw, something that you were sort of like waiting for in a way. Do you know what I mean?
So are they layered on top of each other, or do they just kind of alternate?
They alternate.
Yeah.
They're not layered on top of each other. So the bass is actually on Trillion, which is a plugin by Spectrasonics, which I use a lot. The preset is S20 Hopscotch, and I would have just messed around with the cut-off, resonance, decay, and yeah, basically it's got no effects on there that from Trillion, but it's just using that M6 MS 20 hopscotch preset, and then I would have added my own processing again. It's quite a heavy sound anyway, but I wanted to give it that really pumping, dirty extra drive to it. That I wanted it to be a little bit oversaturated. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit just to give it that raw, and it really does show in the track. And as you can hear from it, does sound. Do you know what I mean? It's got like a raw to it. Do you know what I mean? It's proper. It proper stands out in the mix. So that's how I did the bass really, and the patterns are just like I showed here. It just sort of goes straight up and back down, and then it's just quite bouncy. Do you know what I mean? Then the other variation's quite up, then down, up, and then down. Do you know what I mean? It's quite like it's just got a little bit of a bounce and a rise to it, and that just sort of went well with these drums here. And then I think I just started adding more layers and layers. So if we start working on the drums, we've got the bass, you've got that gelling together. Here's the low end gelling together. So that's how all that sound's coming together. With the congas also as well. So I've grouped them. I've got the little bit of processing on these. I use a micro shift on the congas as well to make them quite wide. So I won't have it too heavy. This is just a little bit like it's not really got much detuning or delay on it, but it's just more so that sort of spread sound you get from widening it with a micro shift, and I really like that, the way it sits in the mix. So basically I've also added quite a heavy track delay to the loops because they were already looped, so I wanted to add a bit more delay to them to make them fit in the track a bit more, because I think, what's my swing on this? The swing I use two different swings by the looks of it. 16 MPC 1656 is what I would use for the track. So that's I wanted them loops to fit in with that. So that's how I've gone about them. Then I think I would have started adding other elements. Like I would have thought to add like maybe some hats. So I would have started with my closed hats, and just go look at the hats now. So these are just this is just a little groove of hats here with velocities coming up and down slightly, just to add a bit more groove to it. They're actually straight, this hat. It's got no swing on it. But it sits nicely with the velocity drops, and it doesn't sound bad in the track, so I just went for it like that. So just the hats actually only have a little bit of processing as well. Literally a little bit of drive on the saturator and EQ to 1.25 kilohertz. So that's where I'll get it. So it's about, and I tell you what, actually, the shaker loop also makes this track go nicely with the hat. So that sounds like this together. See how they sound together now? They sound quite like.
Yeah, they play off each other nicely, the two of them, the closed hats and the shaker.
Yeah. And because these are straight as well, and that's just a loop which would have its own sort of groove to it as well, which fits with the track, obviously, because I would have done this when selecting the sample. And with that, I thought don't need much processing either, because it's a loop. It would have already been processed. I just wanted it to have that extra overdrive, not too much though. I won't put too much drive, not much tone and dynamics and dry wet down. So it just sounds clean. So I think that's fine. Yeah, that sits like this. I've got the transients down as well, so it's not too sharp. So yeah, that's my main sort of drum groove really, except for the open hat. Obviously, I'll get that in as well. So that sounds like this. This is the track all together now. And with the processing, again, I've not really done too much on anything. You don't need to really. With most samples, a little bit of saturation, bit of overdrive sometimes, just give it a bit of oomph, and just minor EQ, because I do use the Ableton's EQ a lot as well. I don't just use a fab filter. I'll use a fab filter a lot, but I'd use a bit of both. Do you know what I mean? I don't always use just fab filter or always just use Ableton. So I like them both really. And with the hats group, I usually put a bit of transient shaping on them all together, so it makes them a bit sharper, or just gives it some, like, oh look here, I've used a preset called Emphasize Drums, so that will like basically do what it says on the tin. So if you listen to it, it just makes the drums a lot tighter. Well, the hats in particular, because you can find a lot of messiness from your hats as well in a way. So this just it sort of glues them together and makes them tight. So use that, and I'll also have a sidechain again on kickstart. Just whatever percentage I feel it needs. Usually, not much. I don't need like heavy sidechain on it. Just so it's got a bit of space in the tracks. Also, I missed this off as well. I've got this rim click that's really nice in the track. I think it is a click with a shaker layered, but very subtle. So if we play that as well. So yeah, it's quite heavily processed with the reverb and the delay, as you can hear, and it sounds nice. And it's a bit of overdrive again. With this track, I focused on that overdrive sort of vibe really. With most of the drum elements, I've used that to give it that hard hit, like you would have done with old school sort of music. So you can tell though, it sounds like. You see them congas are really like main elements to the track, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's definitely a focal point.
You hear how they come out in the mix, just listening to the bass and the drums all together. It's just like. And the key thing is, don't use too much. Like, you see how many drums I've got here, but it sounds nice. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds really nice. Like, which is something I do in other tracks. Sometimes you're like, oh, we've got too many things in, which is an easy mistake to make. It's knowing when there's not too many elements is when you sort of know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to put something in for the sake of it, do you? I think it's easy to fall into that trap. You see, you've not got many elements in a track, and you just kind of start throwing pointless sounds in. But I think knowing kind of how to make something simplistic but still sound full is a really good skill to have, isn't it? And I think with these drums, they do live up to that kind of early 2000s tech house, which was quite stripped back, quite raw. And I think it definitely lives up to that.
Yeah, cheers for that, mate. So basically, I went over the drums, so I'll have them in like a group. So when I set up Ableton, I've got like most of these things set up already before I start. So I've got like my kicks loaded with all the samples here, as you can see in the bottom. Like. And I'll do this with my kick, bass. Well, not with the samples. I'll just have like the plugin like Trillion loaded, and then I'll work from there. But with the claps, snares, all that, I'll have everything in racks. It looks like I didn't for this one, but yeah, I usually have everything set up like that: kick drum, clap, snare, and then I'll just add like hats, and that's it really for that. And I'll have like synths ready, but not necessarily there, because I like to just work on my drums first. But yeah, that's how I got the drums going. And then to glue the drums together, I use this generic compressor from Ableton. I think that's the preset as well. It's literally just gives it some, gives your drums that glue. And then you would have used the Decapitator by Sound Toys to give it some saturation on the group. And I think I've used a preset for that, which was Drum Fattener. I think I messed around with the settings a bit and messed around with the output. I didn't mess around with the output on that, but I know there you go. That's what I've done. I've done the utility gain. I've turned the gain down to gain match that with the sound of the drums before processing. And then I'll have this virtual mix rack also by Slate Digital. I'll have this on all of my channels actually. So this is like a sort of channel strip type of plugin. So this will give it some like mixing desk sort of saturation. As you see here, these are actual mixing desks, I believe. So it's like you've got all these different desks you can mess around with there, saying that's what it's emulating in a way, the strip from that desk. And yeah, so I'll just give that I'll chuck that, on most of my channels, not most, but just to give it some glue. So I'll have that to give my drums some glue and saturation, which is very, very subtle, but it makes it sound like it comes from that mixing desk sort of thing. So it sounds like you're using a mixing desk, not quite, but it's almost. Do you know what I mean? I'll have that on my kick, my bass, my drums, and my synths as well. And then I'll have like a sort of, I'll have a channel strip also on my master, which is similar to that. It's not exactly the same one. I think it's more of a master like group sort of effects that give it some gluing and saturation. It's really, really, really subtle, but it just gives it that sort of old school feel and crunch. In general, I do this with all my tracks actually. This is something I do with all my tracks. You don't have to do too much to it, to be fair. You literally just need that and choose what you want from it. And then that's my drums and my kick and bass. And then we go into the more complicated part for this track, I'd say, would be my automation and my synths. So after my drums, and my bass, I thought, oh, get some synths in there. So I would have gone to this group and started it off with this retro bounce. Would have been the first thing I started. So that's the first sound in this series of synths, should I say. So yeah, that's just a little retro sort of synth that goes. It's literally just an E note playing like that. This track's in E minor. So that's why I use the E note. And it's a preset on Omnisphere, I believe. Oh no, it's Bell Wavetable 2 sample from Omnisphere. And I've messed around with the attack, decay, sustain, release to get it sounding how I wanted it to sound. I don't think there's any effects on it, to be honest, on Omnisphere. No. And then I've just processed it in a way that I wanted it to. So I've put Redux on it this time, which is similar to your decimal, and I've got a bit of that as well, but it just gives it a little bit of like a bit of crunch. Makes it sound quite old school again. An auto filter with an LFO on, it just gets it moving slowly and slightly. with a bit of resonance on it. It's quite heavy with the resonance, so it's like. And all my synths I like to use marker shift to spread them in different ways. This is quite heavy on the delay and focusing around your mids. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do with that synth. And then I've got another retro bounce here. Oh, right, if I've duplicated that by accident. Oh no, I've got different patterns going on with it on the track. That's why. I'll work from it this way again. So as we're going with the synths, I've got all them closed now. It comes in. That's the first synth that comes in basically. So well, no, it's not. Sorry, got these other synths here. So I've got like a bouncy synth zap that comes around from the start, which is just something in the background. I'll show you. You see how they sound nice together as well. They've got that call and response sort of with that sound. So as that comes in, the other one, as that one comes out, the other sound comes in with the acid. Do you know what I mean? So I've got this saw here where it says saw. Well, I think it's just acid. Yeah, it's an acid sort of sound. Funky saw. What did I do there? So it's just, yeah. And with that acid also, I've got that moving with an LFO on the autofill, but see how it's moving just slowly and so like it's really subtle, which is what I want to do with everything. I've got a Echo Boy on there as well, which is subtle also, just to give it some delay and just make that acid really fill some spaces, because do you know what I mean? That really sits nicely and fills out a space. And I've done the same sort of thing again. I've got a micro shift, got an auto filter on it to bring it in, some automation. But they're the synths at the start of the track. So if we listen, it's like this. This is when the other synth comes in with this. Yeah, that other one bounces off it as well.
They all work together nicely, which is important, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just grooves. But if you hear that with this squelch as well, and the drums. You see with that as well, I've got it coming in like with the utility, just bringing that volume in. I tend to use utility instead of the actual volume, because when I'm mixing down and trying to change levels and you're messing around with the actual volume, I find it messes up the track a little bit, and you're having issues trying to sort volumes all the time and then going back into this automation view. I tend to use a utility always. So yeah, that's how I've gone with that with my synth. So I would have brought that in so it just slowly comes into the Then as the break comes in next, I've actually started to introduce some new elements. So I brought in this this moving pad and the chords, and I've just teased them early on, like the chords, because the chords come back in later here, as you can see. I've got the acid going again. So the acid comes in early on in the intro, and then they don't come back until the next break. Do you know what I mean? It's just teasing it, a little bit teasing the sounds that are going to come in and then bringing them. So this break actually sounds like this with just the synths. You know what I mean? Do you know how that sounds? Like it's quite like a smooth transition in a way. But if you hear that with the rest of the elements and how it gels the track together and adds that next synth.
Yeah, I think it's important that when you've took kind of the atmospheric elements like the chords and the pads out, it's not just come out harshly. You've got the other synth that comes in and replaces it, so it's not like something's missing as such. It's replaced by another element, and it works really nicely.
Yeah, exactly. So this is how it sounds like that, and I've got automation going again. I've got a Fab Filter, reverb, and Echo Boy a ping pong delay again, but on a automation. So just not too much, just a little bit of that, just to give it some nice effect to the drop and sort of create some space. I think I've also done this with the clap, which is why I got that Echo Boy as well, which gives the clap a bit of like a distant feel, and then the clap comes back in. I think it's like a space echo on that as well. So yeah, so with the breakdown, it sounds like this. This isn't with all the elements of the breakdown, but I'll add some more. We'll see what it sounds like without this. So that's how that break goes, basically. It just sort of blends a few elements in, brings some in, keeps some in. So like this saw, acid, basically. Comes back in on the break and then hits on that drop again for a bit until the main break, and then goes again. Do you know what I mean? Just sort of teasing them elements and bringing them in and taking them away. Just adds like a bit of movement with the track and sounds. Do you know what I mean? And then I've literally only teased that retro bounce again. So I think I've only teased it for 8 bars, is that? So literally that retro bounce is the same sound I've used for the first sound that comes in. So this like that sound, I've reused that sound again for the lead sort of bounce that comes after that. So that's how that came together. I think it was a bit of a happy accident, to be honest. And then with my breakdowns, I like to gel things together with like crashes. So on that, I've got 909 crash, bit of a longer crash on my breaks, and then I'll have like a little short crash on the drop. This gives it that sort of gelling effect and atmosphere as well, because that crash just like you just sort of know someone's coming. And I think I've also taken 4 kicks out, so I'll take that off. So it sounds like this. You see how that kick, taking them kicks out, you sort of know something's coming. Like you sort of feel the kicks going or what's going next, and then you've got that crash, the first crash, which is quite like it's nice, and it just adds a bit of atmosphere to it, like we said before, and then that drop shot comes in and it just adds another. So it just sort of blends that together.
It's them little things, isn't it? Like the little crashes and the little effects and things that can make a breakdown so effective. I think you're really good at doing that usually, aren't you, with your breakdowns, keeping them interesting. I think it can be something people find quite challenging as well.
Yeah, it's something I enjoy doing. I really go into depth with my breakdowns recently. This isn't, well, this is pretty deep with it actually. When you look at it, it's quite a lot of synths going on at once in the breakdown, which is probably what makes the track. You know what I mean, adds that depth, that atmosphere that you're waiting for something to come. Do you know what I mean? So if we look at another breakdown, we've got automations going on all the time as well. So you've got that coming, that retro bounce that came in at the start. That's automated again. I'll have a look at what other automation I've got. I think I've got it on this. I've got it on this group. Echo boy, that. I think there must be some more utility on that. Utility on that as well. Apparently. Oh yeah, there. Add that. Not too much to fade the sounds in because they come in quite nicely anyway. I think. I've used mainly utility automation on this track. Sometimes I also use auto filter to make it quite smooth as well, as I have done here with this acid. Bit of auto filter automation. You can see I do go quite into it with my automations and stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think I might do a little bit with the drums as well. Let's see here. This is an effect that I use on my claps. It's called fracture, and I'll have it come on like after 8 bars of the drop. So just after every 8 bars, it just keeps coming in. It's just nice and keeps the track interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's something I do like doing. It sounds like this. Do you know what I mean? It gives it that extra depth to the clap, so it's not constantly just clap, clap, clap. Do you know what I mean? Even though it's nice, but it just gives it a bit of movement to the track in general. And it's just nice hearing that. Do you know what I mean? You got everything else going on, then you got the clap doing that, and then yeah, I've got all these going on here. I think I've actually done some automation before I froze these elements, because I like to freeze like synths off Omnisphere because sometimes it can go a bit funny, especially with pads. And with this, you can obviously you can play your pad anywhere, because if you play it on your break, you'll have to play your pads at the start of the note, and then you'll be like, oh, you forward it and the pad's not playing. It's just a bit annoying. But yeah, so with the breakdown without the vocal, this is what the main breakdown sounding like synth wise. I still go through some more of the synths on the drop now and see what I've done. So see how they come together, all the synths sort of blending in there. You got like a lot of synths that are adding like real depth to the track. You got these chords that are coming in that I've just played in. Just, do you know what I mean? Not too much, just a little bit of a chord pattern, I think. Yeah, so I've sort of had a look at what other elements are going on here, and I've zeroed the notes and turned them off so I can see where they're playing and where to put my chords. I think this is just an E minor 7th chord. So that's how I've gone about that. Just got them just bouncing throughout with that acid as well. Some automation on these groups together. Oh, here you go. I've got some more auto filter frequency to bring the evolving pad and pads up together. So yeah, they sound. You see how they add a lot of depth and a lot of effect.
Yeah, the resonance sounds really nice in that.
Yeah, it's quite like, it's just mad sounds really. And this is what you're going to think about breakdowns. There's a lot of people just tend to go for the same old, do you know what I mean? I think if you experiment with it, use mad stuff. I know, like, even just look at like your effect, your pads, for example. If you've got Omnisphere, you can look at some mad pads, to be honest, or you can just use a normal pad from whatever synth you've got, plugin, for example, And you could duplicate that pad and maybe just put some mad effects on it in general, and then you've got like 2 layers to that pad, and you can make it sound quite evolving and mad, and maybe put some LFO on the one, so the one's coming in, and then you've got like another like mad effect sort of LFO in sort of pad in there as well. Do you know what I mean? You can add that same sort of effect, but with here I've got 2 different samples that I've got off Omnisphere, and just one's evolving and one's just constant, so it's like. Do you know what I mean? It's like proper. It just gives it that extra bit, and it just goes along with all the other synths as well. And it just gives it that breakdown effect. I've got a vocal that comes in only on the breakdowns as well, and the vocals just from a sample pack. I don't know if it says what sample pack, but should have a look. That's frozen. So yeah, as a sample, I froze it after applying some effects to it to make it sound the way it does. So I think I used, Sound Toys Effect Rack is what I used. And yeah, so it sounds like this. So that's, yeah, it doesn't sound quite just pure plain vocal, you know what I mean? Gives it some crunch, gives it some mad sort of sound, and it just, you can hear that in the track, do you know what I mean? You can hear that in the break, and you're like, oh, like it's a bit glitchy, do you know what I mean? I like that sort of sound as well. It really goes well with the track. And you can also do this effect with Tantra. If you've got Tantra, for example, and just put like a preset on it and mess around with the dry wet.
It harmonizes quite well as well, that vocal. You can hear the low end coming through, and then you can hear the higher pitch vocal itself, can't you?
Yeah. You can definitely hear that. It does sound nice with the track. I think I played. No, did I play it or was it a pure sample? I think it was just a sample, and then I've like with this as well. I think I've automated it coming in, so it comes in slowly, and then to that last bit of the drop, it comes in with a snare, and that snare is really nice as well. That's the only time the snare comes in actually in this track. Is there? It's not. I usually use snares all the time in my tracks, but for this track, I've only used a snare there, and it's just. What snare is it? Just a snare too, but it's just sounds heavy, and that automates in as well, I believe. So it's all about automation and gelling things together. See, I'm bringing all these automations together now. I think, is there any more on my drums? Yeah, here. So if I show this automation as well, which is the reverb on the drums, see how it all comes together with the automations and how I've got things coming in and out and building things. You got like an automation group here that builds these frequencies, and they come and go, and just adds loads of effects to the track. You see with the snare here as well, I've actually got that coming in very, very like low, and then it comes in hard. I think that's the only automation on that. Yeah, literally just a gain on that, so it just comes in. So that's how I've gone there, and that's a lot of the automation I kind of use. Yeah, the vocals, not too much to it. It's just I've used a few effects, and then I've just processed it. I've got a bit of de-essing on there, compressor, and micro shift again, which is what I just do on most of my vocals. And I've used a preset called lead vocal clarity, but I've messed with that again and sort of tweaked it, which is an important thing to look at on your plugins, your presets, because they're made by professionals for you. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know what you're doing as such in crafting the sound, which you can do if you just look at this, it's not too complicated, but then presets work really well, I find, especially the Sound Toys ones. So that's how I've gone there. I've got this squelch in here as well that I've got, and I think that's I've drawn them in actually, which is just a squelchy snare, which is something I wouldn't have usually used. So if you have a listen to that on its own. Yeah, I see that's quite that's quite an important sound throughout the track if you listen to that. Like you can definitely hear that throughout. And I've got Tantra on that with the sequence chase preset just to make it sound a bit mad. Like that. So if we turn that Tantra off, what does it sound like? You know what I mean? Sounds a lot different, but with that Tantra, it gives it that space and it sounds nice in the track. Bit of EQ and a bit of panning, auto pan around the head, and I would have messed around with the presets on that again, and it just sounds. It bounces across the head, like the preset says. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's one of them sounds, I think, especially in this track, that if you take it out, you realize it's gone. Like it feels a bit more empty, whereas you don't really notice it's in there, but when it's not there, you can really feel it's gone, can't you? It just fills the space out and feels really nice in the track.
Yeah, and that track runs from the start to the end, so that's one of the key elements of the track as well, really, because that comes in from the start and just finishes at the end, so you still got that going in the outro. You know what I mean? It's nice. It comes in differently. It's not the same because it's got that tantra on and it's got that delay on and it's got the around the head. It just comes in like your ears nicely. Do you know what I mean? If you know what I mean. So quite like that. And then I've got the same sort of things going. I've got my break crashes and I've got my drop shots. So I'll always have a drop shot after a break. Just, I've used a little white noise riser here just to build some more atmosphere, and it all like gels nicely together. That's about it really to the track in general, but with the I've not done too much processing, you see. That's the thing, like with the right noise riser, I don't even put anything on that, to be honest. All my crashes, but usually I'd put an EQ on that, but it sounds alright. But yeah, so that's pretty much the track and all its elements, and my automation and processing and the way I'd go around the track. I've also got some bits I use on the master channel. So you see, it all comes together now. So on my master channel, I use a Neutron 3 by Isotope, and they've got like a all-purpose mix bus sort of preset that I'll tweak and make it suit with my tonal balance. So it only has like an EQ and a bit of a sculptor to add some fullness to the sounds. It's not too much, you know what I mean? It's sub, but it's like a bit of soft saturation and just gives it some more life. So see if you can listen to the track and you can hear any of these things. So.
Big difference.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a really, really good plugin, mate. I rate all the Isotope stuff, and that does add some life to your track. And then I've used just an EQ after that, in case there's any like low frequencies. I've used that virtual mix rack again, but I've used it with virtual mix bus, which glues all my elements from the whole track. Do you know what I mean? Makes it sound like it's been made together. A bit of virtual tape from Slate Digital again, which will give it some tape saturation and make it sound old school again, along with the others. And this is something I always use, and this is the settings I use. And then sometimes I'll just check on the tonal balance control. This is just a rough sort of idea for the mix in general. See, you got these here you can boost and low, like mess around with the low end, but I'd say it's about there. Do you know what I mean? And when I do like a DJ master on it, I'd always like tweak that, and I'm sure when the track gets mastered, they get tweaked in them areas too. So that's how I go about that. And I just have a limiter there for if I want to turn it up when I'm playing and stuff like that. And then EQ at the end again, just so there's no low frequencies for all that. But that's about it, really. There's not too much to the track, but that's the sort of way I'd work, and it's an arrangement I've used. I've literally jammed the arrangement in, I believe. So I would have just jammed this in to where I wanted it to work and tweaked it if it didn't sound right, or I could have made it fit musically or whatever. and it's quite a like DJ friendly track as well, because of where the elements come in and go out. So we say towards the end, like, this is the final drop. You know what I mean? It's not too cluttered with synths. Do you know what I mean? There could be a lot more, but it's just nice, the bass and the drums. So that's pretty much how I go about my tracks. And I've got obviously a specific order. I go intro, first drop, mini break 1, second drop, main break, third drop, mini break 2, final drop, outro. And this is just how I work in general, because I like to have these markers. So say if I'm down here, do you know what I mean? I've got all my markers still. I can see where I am. Or,
You know where you are, yeah.
When doing automation, I can do it like that. It's just something I do with my like, little bit of OCD and stuff. So, and then I put my end like that, because I like to always have one bar after with like maybe just some effects at the end, that just where all the delays and reverbs and all that just go like so. You know what I mean? It's just a nice little touches. You don't have to, but it's if the whole track's getting played out. You know what I mean? Got a little bit of that, and I'll just set like a loop from there and export it. So that's about it really for that, mate.
That sounds sick, mate. It's definitely one of them tracks that's kind of, you know, it's simple in its nature, but there's a lot of musical elements to it, isn't there? And they all work together, but I think they kind of, there's a lot of automation in terms of bringing things out and replacing it with other sounds, and I think that's what makes it work so well. It's not kind of, like you say, it's not cluttered with synths, like, you know, a lot of the deep stuff, but it works really well together, all these little elements. But yeah, obviously the track sounds mint. And I think it's a good insight for people. It shows as well you don't need 90 channels with ridiculous amounts of processing on everything to get the sound that you're after. It's got that raw feel to it, but it's still got a lot going on. And yeah, I think people will pick some really good tips up from that. So thank you for that, Kesh.
Yeah, no worries, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. If you've watched, let us know in the comments if you'd like to see obviously any other Friction tracks. We can try and get in touch with the artist, see if they'd be keen on doing this. And just basically, if this helped you, feel free to put any questions in the comments as well, and we'll try and get around to answering them. But yeah, thank you for watching. Give it a like if you can, and see you soon.